Let me tell you something that's hard to hear, but absolutely essential. People often don't realize the value of what they had until they've already broken it. He didn't walk away because you weren't enough. He walked away because he couldn't recognize what was right in front of him. Now, he's starting to feel the weight of what he let slip through his fingers. But here's the twist. While he's just waking up to what he lost, you've already started becoming someone he no longer has access to. This isn't about revenge. It's about self-worth. It's about understanding that being taken for granted was never a reflection of your value, only a reflection of his blindness to it. When someone takes you for granted, it doesn't happen all at once. It's a slow erosion. In the beginning, they show up fully. They compliment you, chase you, make plans, and express appreciation. But as time goes on, the effort fades. The texts become shorter, the compliments fewer, the attention divided. You're still giving, still showing up, still loving, hoping they'll notice, hoping they'll snap out of it. But they don't. Because in their mind, you're already there. You've become a fixture in their life. Predictable, safe, assumed. And somewhere along the way, they stop seeing you as the prize. Not because you've changed, but because they stopped looking at you with the eyes they once did. This is where so many people get stuck. You start questioning yourself. Did I do something wrong? Did I become boring? Am I not enough anymore? But the truth is, you were always the prize. You didn't lose your shine. He just got used to the light. And when someone stops appreciating that light, it doesn't dim your brilliance. It just reveals their inability to value what they have. You see, it's incredibly easy to take someone for granted when we believe they won't leave. When we assume their love, their time, their care is guaranteed. That's when people get careless. They get entitled. They think love is something they're owed, rather than something they must continually earn. The problem is, most people don't realize they're doing it until it's too late, until the energy shifts, the effort stops being reciprocated, and suddenly the person they once had unwavering access to begins to pull away. And that's usually the moment regret kicks in. When you finally stop showing up for them the way you used to, when your texts slow down, when your eyes stop searching for them in a room, when your heart starts protecting itself instead of pouring out for them, they panic. Not because they suddenly know how to love you properly, but because they're losing the comfort they once took for granted. And now they feel the void you used to fill. They crave your warmth. They miss your presence. They remember the way you made them feel whole without ever needing to ask for it. But here's the key thing. What they miss is not necessarily you. It's the feeling of being loved deeply, consistently, unconditionally. It's the security you gave them, the loyalty you offered, the softness you brought into their life. And while all of that came from you, they never treated it like something rare. They treated it like something replaceable. Until it was gone. The shift happens when you recognize this. When you stop waiting for them to notice. When you stop handing out reminders of your worth and start embodying it for yourself. That's when your power returns. That's when their regret begins to grow. Because the version of you that was taken for granted no longer exists. You've evolved. You've become more discerning, more self-assured, more grounded in what you deserve. So when he comes back, craving what he once destroyed, remember, he didn't lose you by accident. He lost you by choice. By failing to recognize the value that stood in front of him every single day. And that's not on you. That's on him. Complacency is one of the most dangerous things in any relationship. It sneaks in quietly, usually disguised as comfort. At first, it feels like ease, like familiarity, like the natural progression of closeness. But over time, comfort without effort becomes complacency. And complacency kills appreciation. That's exactly what happened with him. He got used to having you around. He got used to your kindness, your attention, your emotional availability. And rather than matching your consistency with his own, he began to operate on autopilot. You became part of his routine, not his priority. The truth is, People don't usually take what's hard to get for granted. They take what they believe will always be there. And once he convinced himself that you weren't going anywhere, he stopped doing the things he once did to win you over. He stopped asking how you were really feeling. He stopped making thoughtful gestures. He stopped being intentional. Why? Because somewhere deep down, he believed that no matter how little he gave, you would keep giving. You were dependable. You were patient. You were consistent. And instead of honoring that, he exploited it. You weren't loved the way you deserved. You were tolerated. And when someone starts treating you like a convenience, you begin to feel like a placeholder. You question if you're being too much, asking for too much, needing too much. But what you were really asking for wasn't extravagant. It was presence, effort, respect, reciprocity. And he failed to deliver. Not because you were too demanding, but because he grew too comfortable. He confused your grace for passivity. He thought that because you stayed through the quiet seasons, you'd never leave. Even when he stopped showing up at all. This is where so many people lose themselves. You try to shrink your needs, to lower your expectations, to become easier to love, thinking that if you just hold on a little longer, they'll return to who they used to be. But comfort doesn't bring out the best in everyone. In some, it brings out entitlement. And the more you gave without boundaries, the more he assumed you would always be there to fill in the gaps, not realizing that even the most patient hearts eventually get tired. Then the day comes when you stop trying, when your energy pulls back, when you no longer remind him of what he's forgetting, because you've stopped needing to convince anyone of your worth. And suddenly, the loss he thought would never happen is staring him in the face. The convenience is gone. The emotional safety net he had in you disappears. And now what once felt guaranteed becomes something he has to chase. He begins to miss the very things he once ignored. The little texts, the late night talks, the emotional support, the way you always understood without him needing to explain. He starts to crave the version of you that showed up fully, even when he didn't. But by then, something in you has shifted. You realize that you were never asking for too much. You were asking the wrong person. He may come back, apologizing, promising to try, saying he sees things clearly now. But comfort isn't love. Familiarity isn't commitment. And unless he's willing to unlearn that complacency, he's only chasing what he once consumed without appreciation. You were never meant to be someone's fallback. You were meant to be someone's choice, not chosen out of panic or regret, but out of true recognition. You're not a convenience. You're a commitment. And anyone who treats you like anything less isn't ready to have you. Time changes people. Sometimes slowly, sometimes all at once. And when you go through heartbreak, something in you shifts. It has to. You can't come out of being taken for granted, ignored, or undervalued and remain the same. You start to see things differently. You start to question the dynamics you once accepted. And little by little, you begin to outgrow the version of yourself that tolerated emotional crumbs. That version of you, the one who waited for his attention, who overlooked the red flags, who gave more than she received, that woman doesn't exist anymore. And yet he's still chasing her. When he starts to feel your absence, he begins romanticizing the past. He remembers your smile, your warmth, your unwavering loyalty. He replays the good memories, the ones where you showed up for him no matter how inconsistent he was. But what he fails to see is that the woman who created those memories is no longer standing still, waiting for him to notice her. She evolved. She learned. She built herself back up from the disappointment he left her in. And now he's craving a version of you he can no longer reach. This is what often happens when someone realizes what they lost. They reach for the past, not the present you. Not the stronger, wiser, more self-assured version. They're nostalgic for the person who used to forgive easily. The one who didn't have boundaries. The one who put his needs before her own. But growth changes your capacity for tolerating what once hurt you. And when you grow, you don't just change how you show up for others. You change what you accept from them. He might think you're the same. He might believe he can come back with a few apologies, some sweet words, and maybe even a promise to do better. But that only works on someone who hasn't grown. The version of you he took for granted may have accepted that effort before. But this version, she sees through it. She knows that recognition without real change is just guilt dressed up as clarity. And that's what makes your growth so powerful. He's craving something he helped destroy, without realizing that what was destroyed gave way to something even stronger. You became someone who no longer needs validation from someone who couldn't give it in the first place. You stopped chasing closure and instead created peace on your own. You're not bitter. You're not angry. You're just done. The hardest part about growing is realizing that not everyone grows with you. Some people stay stuck in the same patterns, expecting you to still play the same role in their life. But you've outgrown that script. You're no longer someone who waits to be chosen. You've already chosen yourself. So when he comes back, and chances are he will, understand that what he's drawn to isn't just the memory of what you had. He's drawn to the realization that you're no longer accessible, that your love, once so freely given, now comes with standards. And that scares him, because he knows deep down that who you've become won't settle for the version of him that left. He's craving something he can't recreate, because the truth is, you didn't just move on from him, you moved up from him. You became someone that the past version of him was never equipped to keep. And unless he's grown too, all he'll be left with is the memory of what he lost, not the reality of who you are now. It's natural to want to believe that when someone regrets losing you, they've changed, that their pain has brought clarity, that their sudden awareness of what they let go means they're finally ready to give you what you always deserved. But regret and readiness are not the same thing. Feeling sorry for what they doesn't mean they have the capacity to love you better now. And it definitely doesn't mean they're willing, or even able, to do the work to repair what they broke. Regret is emotional. It's reactive. It comes in waves, triggered by memories, by loneliness, by the absence of something once comforting and familiar. But readiness, that's something entirely different. Readiness is action. It's responsibility. It's showing up differently. Not just saying, I miss you, but proving, I won't hurt you the same way again. That's a big gap. And most people don't bridge it. Because it's far easier to mourn the loss than to mature enough to stop repeating the behavior that caused it. When he says he regrets losing you, he might mean it. The loneliness might be real. The atchie might be sharp. But those feelings don't automatically make him a better partner. Sometimes people come back not because they've grown, but because they hate the discomfort of being without you. They want the closeness back, the comfort, the emotional safety you gave them. But that desire isn't always rooted in love. It's often rooted in familiarity and guilt. Guilt can be powerful. It can make someone feel desperate. It can make them say everything you ever wanted to hear. But guilt-driven words rarely lead to long-term change, because guilt fades, and once the emotion passes, they often slip right back into the same patterns, the same emotional unavailability, the same lack of effort, the same complacency that pushed you away in the first place. That's why you have to listen carefully, not just to what he says, but to what he doesn't do. Is he truly showing up differently? Has he taken time to understand the ways he hurt you? Or is he just trying to erase the past and pick up where he left off? Is he accepting responsibility without excuses? Or is he trying to fast forward to forgiveness without doing the work? These are the questions that matter, because love isn't just about regret, it's about repair. And repair takes maturity, humility, and consistency. You deserve someone who doesn't need to lose you to appreciate you. Someone who chooses you fully, not when it's convenient or when they're lonely, but when they're ready, truly ready, ready to meet your needs, to communicate with honesty, to grow alongside you. Anything less is just an emotional loop, one where you get pulled back into hope, only to be disappointed again. So be careful not to confuse his pain with progress. Pain might make him realize he lost something valuable, but it doesn't mean he knows how to treat it right now. He may miss you deeply. He may wish he could undo everything. But unless he's done the inner work to become someone different, not just someone who wants you, but someone who's ready to love you in a healthy, consistent way, then his regret is just a feeling, and feelings alone aren't enough to rebuild trust. Don't let your desire for connection cloud your clarity. Let his actions, not his apologies, tell you who he is now. And if all he brings is emotion, nostalgia, and regret, then understand this: he may crave you, but craving alone never built a healthy relationship. Commitment did. Growth did. And if he hasn't done that, his regret is just another illusion, one you no longer have to fall for. There's something deeply unfair about giving someone your heart, watching them mishandle it, and then hearing them say they want another chance. Not because they've shown transformation, but because they've finally felt the weight of their own choices. It's tempting to go back, especially when the person who hurt you starts showing remorse, reaching out with kind words, and promising to change. But here's the truth that's often hardest to facing: just because someone regrets losing you doesn't mean they deserve a second opportunity to hurt you the same way again. You don't owe someone a second chance at the same mistake. People love to romanticize the idea of trying again when they feel your absence. Suddenly, the things they dismissed or ignored before become clear. They realize how much you gave, how steady you were, how deeply you loved them. And now they want it back. But wanting it back is not the same as being ready to treat it right. You already gave them the opportunity to show up. You gave them the space to be consistent, honest, present. They didn't take it. That's not an accident. That's a decision. It's easy to say all the right things after the damage has been done. It's easy to come back and say, "I've changed. I miss you. I see it now." But change isn't about awareness. It's about action. And often, people don't miss you. They miss the version of themselves they were when they were with you. They miss your support, your stability, the feeling of being seen. That's not love. That's comfort. And you're not here to be someone's emotional comfort zone while they figure out who they want to be. When someone asks for another chance, you have to ask yourself, are they doing this because they truly understand what they destroyed? Or are they just uncomfortable with the consequences of losing you? Are they craving connection, or simply trying to escape their own guilt? Because guilt-driven actions fade. When someone comes back out of fear or loneliness or regret, it rarely leads to lasting change. True change is intentional. It's painful. It requires time, reflection, accountability, not just a temporary feeling of loss. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, maybe this time will be different. That hope is powerful. But hope without boundaries is dangerous. It convinces you to ignore patterns, to overlook red flags, to downplay the things that hurt you before. You find yourself silencing your own needs just to keep the peace. Again, you're not here to teach the same lessons twice. You're not a revolving door for someone's growth journey. You are not the rehearsal for their real love story. You are not the warm-up act for someone to finally become who they should have been in the first place. You deserve to be with someone who shows up right the first time. Someone who values you without needing to lose you first. Someone who doesn't just feel bad for hurting you, but takes ownership and proves they've done the work to change. Anything less than that isn't love. It's a cycle. And cycles only end when you choose to break them. So, no, you don't owe him a second chance at the same mistake. You owe yourself the peace of walking away from something that already showed you what it was. If he truly has changed, that will be evident over time, with or without your presence. Let him do the work on his own, without asking you to pay for it again. Because your heart isn't a lesson, it's a gift. And the right person will know how to cherish it the first time. You weren't put into his life to teach him how to be better for the next person. You weren't some lesson he had to learn the hard way. And yet, That's how it often feels when someone walks from you, realizes what they lost too late, and then uses the memory of you to guide how they show up for someone else. It's frustrating. It's painful. It makes you question why you had to be the one who endured the worst of him, just so someone else might get his best. But the truth is, you were never the lesson. You were the standard, and he simply couldn't rise to meet it. He didn't lose you because you were difficult, or too emotional, or asked for too much. He lost you because you had the courage to expect more. You stood for something. You brought realness, depth, and loyalty to the table. And when he failed to appreciate that, when he consistently chose avoidance, laziness, or immaturity, that was his reflection, not yours. You were never asking for more than what was fair. You were asking for effort, honesty, and emotional presence. That's not being too much. That's being clear. And he wasn't ready to meet you there. When he walked away, or when you finally let go, he might have convinced himself that he'd be fine, that he could find someone easier, that he could still get love without having to grow up. But at some point, life catches up, reality sets in, and that's when it hits him. Not every connection is created equal. Not every woman brings what you brought. Not every person is willing to pour into someone the way you did. That kind of presence can't be replaced. It's not about ego, it's about rarity. You were rare. And when someone realizes that too late, it stings. He may start calling you the one that got away. He might talk about how you changed him, how you taught him what he needed to work on, how he now sees what a real connection should look like. But here's what you have to remember. You weren't there to prepare him for someone else. You were there to be met with the same energy, the same care, the same depth. If he wasn't ready to meet you at that level, the loss is his to carry, not yours to keep fixing. It's so easy to internalize someone else's lack, to think, maybe if I'd been more patient, he would have changed, or maybe I should have tried harder to help him grow. But growth isn't your job. You can inspire it, support it, but you cannot carry someone over the finish line of their own maturity. If he needed to lose you to realize your worth, that doesn't mean you failed him. It means he failed to recognize what was in front of him when it mattered. You have to stop seeing yourself as the lesson and start seeing yourself as the standard. You set the bar by showing up with consistency, kindness, and love. You led with integrity. You offered grace. That isn't weakness, it's strength. And one day, someone will meet you at that level, not because they were trained by the person who failed you, because they already know how to value something real. So if he now craves what he destroyed, that's his burden. Let him feel the full weight of what he lost. Let him sit with the realization that he couldn't keep what was extraordinary because he showed up in an ordinary way. You're not his training ground. You're not his stepping stone. You were the real thing. And if he couldn't see that, the only lesson he gets now is regret. The hardest thing to accept is that someone can want you back and still not be right for you. That regret can look like love. But it's not. You are not here to be recycled through someone's emotional awakening. You are not here to validate someone's delayed appreciation. You were the prize then, and you are the prize now. But the difference, you no longer need to convince anyone of that truth. Let his craving be a reminder, not of what he wants, but of what he lost. And let your healing be the proof that the love you gave wasn't wasted. It simply returned home to you.